Now it is my extreme pleasure to introduce to you our moderator and facilitator, Mr. Bob Braun.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to the candidates for coming and being prepared to share their views with us. It's a singular honor for me, actually, to be asked to participate in this important exercise in local self-determination. After 50 years at the Ledger, I set off on my own blog, and just because of circumstances, I managed to be sucked in to what's going on in Newark. And when Jeff and Arlene suggested that I come and do this tonight, I was wondering, you know, what about me? Why am I doing this? And I talked to them, and I talked to some other people, and caught up on Lee's work and work of others. And I realized that Belleville, in its recent past, has brought it, in the Belleville school system, to where the Newark schools were about 20 years ago. In a lot of fiscal trouble. State breathing down its neck. I mean, you've got a state monitor. Next step, there was a state monitor in Newark too before this takeover in 1995. And a lot of choices will be made in the next couple of weeks, nothing more important than the election, that will determine whether you go the way of Newark and lose self-determination for a long time, as they found out in that city, or whether you can fix things, repair things. So I decided I think this would be good, not simply for Belleville, but what is known about Belleville is going to be good for lots of districts throughout the state, because a lot of districts are facing the same kinds of troubles that you guys are. So November 4th is going to be important, and this is an important night for you to learn and for me to learn. Arlene and Jeff and I talked about the questions. I haven't shared them with anybody else and wouldn't. And we're going to start, does everybody know the timing? 2 minutes? Okay. But we start with introductory. Right, I'm going to, well, why don't we do the introductions alphabetically, and then when we start asking the questions, we'll do it a little differently. Okay? So, alphabetically by last name, the first candidate would be Gabrielle Bennett. Ms. Bennett?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Gabrielle Bennett. I am married. I have 2 children attending the Belleville school system. One in elementary school, and one just got to high school, so I've been through the middle school. I have an undergraduate degree in English, business management concentration, a master's in environmental science management. I work full-time. I was an informal educator for the Environment Center in the Meadowlands. Now I conduct more research and monitoring. I work with local institutions to try to help their children succeed and hopefully get to the next step, which would be to a career. So I think it's very important running for the Board of Education. I feel that I could bring a lot to the Board of Education. I think I could bring the view that they haven't had in quite some time, which is a mother of 2 children in the schools, something that's been lacking, and maybe the decisions that were made probably wouldn't have gotten to the point that they are now. I'm a volunteer in town, the community, the schools in the community. I've been the home and school president for a number of years, actually since my son walked through the doors of the elementary school. Home and school president for the middle school, Cub Scouts den leader. In the town, I'm on the Historic Preservation Commission. So that's about all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. Ms. Dolan?
My name is Patricia Dolan. My daughter is a 2013 graduate of Belleville High School. She's currently pursuing her career in education. I've lived in Belleville since 1963. I own my own home. I've been with the firm of Connell Foley for 29 years as a legal assistant. I decided to run for the Board of Ed because of the spending. The children are not receiving the supplies they need. They don't have current textbooks. And what I mean by current is September 11th is not even in their history book. So our books are very old. The teachers don't have printers. They don't have paper. They're lacking a lot of supplies. Although they're lacking these supplies, and they've been lacking them for well over a year, they have taught to the best of their ability, but we have shortchanged the teachers, and most of all, we have shortchanged the children in this district. They deserve a better education than the Board of Ed is allowing them to get. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dolan. Ms. Straka?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor to be a candidate. I've lived in Belleville for 24 years. I went through school 9, middle school, and Belleville High School. Currently, my son and my sister are attending the middle school and the high school. And I also agree, we are lacking a lot of things in our schools. And it's really creating, damaging them in their upbringing. Okay, this is our future. These are the children are going to be there when we're seniors. And even though I recall going through the schools here in Belleville and lacking a lot of things, we are lacking more now than I recall when I was going through schools. I think that uniting as a community is important. I think it's going to be what is going to allow us to move forward for prosperity. This is our home. This is where we live. And I know that when you enter your homes, just as I do, I don't, enter and just walk over a broken floor or a ceiling. I don't just ignore it. I repair it. I fix it. And I think this is the time now. And that's why I'm running. So hopefully we can unite and work to prosper. I do have a criminal justice degree and an English degree from Seton Hall. I currently work for state Medicaid. I see families destroyed, whether it's financially, whether it's healthcare, whether it's any situation. And that's what I see here too in Belleville. So let's hopefully unite and repair this for the better future of our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Straka. Ms. Lamparello. I'm sorry, I apologize if I don't get your names right.
Hi, my name is Christine Lamparello. Everybody knows me, calls me Chris. I have a husband, Michael, who's been living here for 13 years. I have 2 sons. Anthony is 21. He went through Belleville school system through special ed. He was an out-of-district send to the Bleshman Regional Day School. While I was at that school, I was the PTA president there for 6 years and a PTA member for 18 years in various functions and offices. Under the guise of special ed, I've served on many committees, statewide, countywide, to advocate for those special ed students. I have a very distinctive knowledge of special ed because nobody can say anything more than you need to fight for your special ed kids, and you do. And I have done that for my son and for others. I also have an 18-year-old son who just graduated from Belleville High School in June. He's going to Kane College and he's seeking a degree in business and a minor in photography. He started at school 10, went through the middle school, and went through the high school. I'm a home and school of every single one of those schools that he was in. I've served on the football parents and the crew parents because my son was also an athlete. I've been with the Boy Scouts. I've been with the Girl Scouts. I'm a Catholic War veteran. and I don't think I forgot anything. It's been a very busy last 15 years. I decided to run for the Board of Education because of all the reasons everybody else said. Our kids are lacking and they need things. I feel like I can bring to the table a lot of good things. I've worked with a lot of people in the district. I've spent a lot of time with the kids, and when you do that, you feel like they're your own. And now that my children have graduated, this is the next progressive step for me. This is the next way that I can serve all of the students of Belleville, and I would hope to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Braun.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Dear friends, I want to personally thank you for your interest in my candidacy for the Belleville Board of Education. I cannot stress how important having a quality education is. We are at a difficult crossroads with our educational system here in Belleville, and this is why I'm running. I want to bring back transparency in all our fiscal and financial systems. I want to restore the trust of our educators, administrators, parents, and most of all, students. In me, you would have a true voice that would advocate for new programs, proper classroom space, and most important, the materials needed to educate our children. As a parent of two in the Belleville school system, it is important to me to deliver the core services that our children can be educated and be successful in the future. Thanks for your support, and thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Braun. I just want to make sure everybody else knows, I know the candidates have been briefed, but I'm going to ask the same questions to all the candidates, and they will have, Michael, 2 minutes.
2 minutes. 2 minutes total.
2 minutes to respond, and Mr. Sheldon will hold up a yellow paddle to indicate 30 seconds is left remaining, and a red paddle to indicate time is up. We certainly want you to finish your idea, but let's try to adhere to the time specs as best we can. I'm going to go alphabetically through the candidates, but we're not going to start at the beginning with Ms. Bennett as we did in the introductions. I'm just going to start right smack in the middle with Ms. Draco. So she will be the first one to answer this question and be followed by Ms. Lamparello, Mr. Rolone, Ms. Bennett, and Ms. Dolan. And here's the question. First question. One of the most important, perhaps the most important challenge faced by the school board in the coming months is the selection of a new school superintendent. What, in your opinion, is the single most important criterion you will use to judge the value of a candidate for superintendent? Ms. Draco?
I've been part of a hiring process for a principal at School 9 before. And honestly, the suggestions as a parent that I had were not listened to. So at that time I was the HSA president. So I think that even now we're not listening to the parents and to the community, because they are the ones suffering the consequences of our decisions if I were to be elected. I would like to have a committee and focus on gathering suggestions. And primarily, I think education and their experience is important. I don't think a teacher of 6 years is sufficient to be a principal. And I don't think a superintendent of not having even a master's degree is good to hire as a superintendent, which we've done in the past. So I would focus on their education, what they have to bring to the table before I actually even think of hiring them. I need to make sure that their foundation, what they're going to teach our children, is solid. So I will focus on what experience they have. So that's what I would focus on.
Thank you, Ms. Lamparello.
Well, I think that the fact that they've hired a company to do a search for a superintendent is a very good start. That will weed out the people who really are not qualified at all for the job. They've reached out to the population and they've asked for, did a survey and they asked for what, you would like to see in a superintendent. So, that part of it will be, that part of the search will have weeded out anybody who isn't serious about having the job. That being said, I feel that the proper, person to be a superintendent is somebody who has been at it for a long time. And by that I mean has spent a lot of time as a teacher, worked in the school, worked with the students, were in a classroom for a number of years. Then maybe became a principal, moved on to administrative job, because you can't know anything about running a school unless you actually worked in one for a long period of time and got to know what it was like to actually be a teacher. And somebody like that, I feel, can understand what the teachers need and what the staff needs better than somebody who just came out of college and jumped into the job of being a superintendent. So for me, it would be very important that the person did have a very good background in education, but from being a teacher up into being an administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Braun.
Thank you. Choosing the superintendent, I think, is one of the most important things that the board or the board trustees will do. This board has failed us on the last 3 selections. Their process for selecting superintendents leaves a lot to be desired for. So I would definitely walk away from what they're presently doing in this process. I do not condone any of their actions to this point. Selecting a group or committee or company to do this, I would want to take a look at see who this company is. I mean, the last company that they hired has made a mess of our technology system and security surveillance issues. If I were given the opportunity, which I think this board is not going to do, allow these candidates or the 2 new elected board members to take a part in this process, I think they're going to try to railroad a whole nother superintendent in before we can get elected. So although I would love to have an opportunity to sit on that board and be part of that process, I'm not sure that I'm ever going to get it. If I were given the opportunity, I think a knowledge of the community is very important. And that's why I think that selecting individuals from within homegrown would help. The other thing is their educational background. I would insist or review their political ties to make sure that we can avoid the corruption and the problems that we've had in the past. And lastly, I would like to meet them personally and get a feel for who they are and what they stand for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Braun. Ms. Bennett?
I had the pleasure of sitting in on one of the groups that was able to go ahead and talk to the search company that was looking for the superintendent.
Sorry.
And, I would have to agree with Chris Lamparello a little bit on that. Some of the things that I said that I would want in a superintendent would be, yes, the experience, the same demographics that Belleville has is a plus, all of the funding and the monies that we get and where it should go and how it should go. I think that's very important. I think leadership is really important right now, and I think if you were looking for the one value, that's the value that I said to them. Communication within the leader to be able to get all of the constituent groups together and to be able to go ahead then and modify what we've been doing wrong all of this time and go ahead and set our goals straight and align them with the children of the town, because we have really suffered in the last 3 candidate searches. It's been quite some time that we've been without a good, strong leader. So I would have to say that it's leadership.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. Ms. Dolan?
Well, we have a company now that's looking for a superintendent for us. There was a survey online to ask what you want in a superintendent. I have filled that out.
I'm sorry, you did not fill that out. Is that what you
No,
said?
I have filled it
Oh,
out.
you have filled it out. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I just want to make sure you understood.
It's on the Belleville website
Okay.
for schools. First of all, I believe that a superintendent has to go through the whole system, starting, I believe, as Chris or Ralph said, as a teacher. Move their way up through the ranks with the education behind them, the certifications that they need, and they would have to have a minimum, in my opinion, of 5 to 10 years as an active superintendent, not assistant, but an active superintendent. And then I would have to look at what they've done for that school district. We are in trouble. And I want to make sure that the next superintendent doesn't put us in more trouble. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Dolan. Second question. When you are dealing with a new superintendent, however that person is selected, and you're negotiating with that person for his package, or what the terms of his employment or her employment is going to be, what will be a more important consideration for you? Continuity or the flexibility of the board to change its mind? Specifically, would you be seeking a 5-year rather than, say, a 3-year contract? And that question will first be answered by Ms. Lamparello, followed by Mr. Braun, Ms. Bennett, Ms. Dolan, and Ms. Giacca. So Ms. Lamparello?
5-year contract, absolutely not. We learned our lesson with Mr. Kalishis. I'm going to, just throw that out there. I don't think that anybody should get a contract for multiple years. I think they need to prove themselves. Any contract that you give to a superintendent should be for a year, maybe 2 years tops. They need to show us that they can do the job. They need to show us that they're heading in the right direction, and that if we see at the end of the year that nothing is different or we're not liking where they're going, we're not worrying about whether we need to buy them out, how much money it's going to cost us to buy them out. We can just end the contract and be done with it, and we can move on to the next person.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bellon?
I think the minimal contract allowed would be a good start. I think that before you offer anyone an extended contract beyond the minimum required contract is foolish. I think you should first ascertain, understand what the principal's mission is. The superintendent's mission is going to be. See what types of strategies they bring forth, what types of plans or programs they plan to implement, and watch them execute them before you provide them with a luxurious 5-year contract. I think the 5-year contract should come for those who have excelled, who have demonstrated the highest level of professionalism, the highest level of academic achievements, their ability to be able to interact with their teachers and educators and directors. I think that all has to be determined before we start extending and affording individuals long-term contracts, which the present board has done. They've provided these long contracts to these individuals, and look at the fiascos that we have been faced with. One superintendent after the other. Failure, what this board has done. To us, to our community, and to our children. The minimum allowed first. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bennett?
I would look for flexibility with the contract, definitely. I'm going to say that my feeling is that people are reading about Belleville, so whoever is applying for this job is going to be reading about our problems and our issues, and so if they really want to come here and tackle what we've got going on, then they are going to come here with the intent that they're going to prove themselves and fix it, and I think they are going to have those credentials. So I'm really looking forward to seeing or finding out who the candidate is, because I kind of feel like Ralph, unfortunately, none of us will have the chance to really delve into picking the candidate, but hoping that we're stepping in the right direction. But I'd say flexibility, definitely.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. Ms. Dolan?
I believe the new superintendent, whoever it may be, should not be given a 2-year, 3-year, or 5-year contract. We've already paid out too many contracts where the superintendents leave, new one comes in, we're double paying. It's hitting the taxpayers. It's not fair to the kids. It's not fair to anyone for them to come in and out. The new superintendent needs to be able to sit with the current Board of Ed, whoever's on it, and be able to talk things out. They need, like everyone says, flexibility. I do not believe more than a 1-year contract should be given. If anything, an interim superintendent should be brought in with the condition that if they improve things and we see they're going in the right direction, we could go to a 1-year contract.
Thank you. Ms. Drucker?
I too agree with the shorter contract because it's a two-way street. So at the same time, we get a feel of the kind of person we've hired, and if we're not content, we don't have to pay out that extra money how we have done in the past and limit our students. So I do agree with the shorter contract. I would like a year in my opinion, because you can tell what that person is in a year, and they need to prove themselves. And I too agree that if that person does in fact apply for this position, with everything going on, they are aware that what they're getting into is something that is not going to be easy. So I do believe that the person applying would be someone who is trying to tackle. But hopefully that flexibility will give us some sort of a middle ground where we can have some leeway to prosper.
Thank you. As a sort of a follow-up to that, it strikes me as interesting that it's going to, getting somebody to come here for 1 year might be a little difficult. But one of the things that you're also going to be doing as members of the board is evaluating your superintendent every year. I am just wondering what criteria would you favor or think is the most important for evaluating that superintendent? And we'll start that question with Mr. Braun.
Evaluating superintendent. There are some grids available that already pre-structured that would help a board member, much like any evaluation for an employee and such. Speaking outside of that structured format or evaluation, I would look to probably morale of the teachers. I think the teachers are a good barometer for the successes or failures of a superintendent. Certainly we could look at the NJ Ask, CUSAC, all of those evaluation tools that are handled by the state to evaluate the superintendent's performance. I don't think we can leave those out. I would also look to their interaction with the board members, their preparation to programs, their focus to detail, much like I would with any manager or employee within my ranks. These are the pieces that I would utilize to evaluate the superintendent. But probably foremost, judge the morale of the teachers and the parents and the students in the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett.
I think in evaluating a superintendent, some of the things that I would figure on first would be the interaction that the superintendent has with the staff, how well he's going to work together with our staff and advocate for our children and align our programs and our curriculum and bring in those resources that we so desperately need into the classroom. Having good people skills, I think, is very important. And right now, like I said before, we need a good leader. We need someone with those people skills because there's a lot of things that are broken right now. And I know that anybody that's looking to come to this town probably is crazy, first of all, but is going to know that we have problems and is either really going to tackle this challenge because it's only going to better them forming their resume. As we know, superintendents are not going to stay around very long. They are going to shift and go. So this is going to be good for anybody that's willing to tackle the issues that Belleville has right now, but probably scary too. So I would definitely look for, again, how well they're collaborating with the staff and funneling the policies that the Board of Ed is doing.
Thank you, Ms. Nolan.
I believe a superintendent, especially at a Board of Ed meeting, should be open and honest with everyone who's in the audience. Along with that, they should be open and honest with their teachers, with the parents, to make sure that everything is given to these kids that they deserve to make sure they have a good education. We're lacking that. The superintendent that we've had in the past has allowed money to go elsewhere, not to the children, not to the classroom. We have to make sure that the superintendent that comes in is above board and open with the Board of Ed, the teachers, and the staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dracker?
The criteria to evaluate the superintendent, in my opinion, is definitely surveying the teachers and the parents, because many of us as parents interact when we have a concern with our children. The teachers interact on a daily basis when they have to handle any situation in the building, from any disruptiveness or perhaps an issue with the computer or not having different essentials for the teaching environment. So definitely surveying the people that interact with the superintendent is important, but also as a community watching that superintendent, his or her actions. In the past, we haven't seen presence from superintendents at events, school functions. It's very difficult. When someone wants to be there, you don't have to ask more than once. You don't have to feel like an obligation. I've seen teachers, as soon as you tell them, oh, I have this event, they attend. They come and support. Whether it's $5, $10, whatever it is, the teachers themselves have supported. Superintendents in the past have just simply not shown up. So I think that their actions and their presence is what we would have to definitely monitor as teachers and parents. And in the surveys, hopefully we can narrow down that and absolutely see if we're going to renew or stay with that superintendent.
Let me just ask a follow-up, Ms. Straka, because I want to make sure I and others understand. When you say survey parents and teachers, are you suggesting that...
Just like we have the online now going on, something like that. We have technology now that we didn't have years ago. Text messaging, we have internet.
No, I understand how you would. I understand how you would survey parents. What I'm asking you is, do you think that it strikes me from what you're saying is it's, and I don't want to belittle what you're saying, but it sounds a little bit like a popularity. I mean, if this person is popular, that would be a criteria by which you would judge this person.
Not by popularity, by actions and the presence. If you're not there.
All right, that presence I understand is a different issue, but I just wanted to make sure I understood what you said when you said surveying.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Lamparello?
Well, according to our policy manual, we already have an evaluation process in place. The first thing I would want to do is look at that and make sure that that process is good. I mean, it probably is not, because we haven't had very much success with superintendents. So that would be the first thing that needs to be looked at. Beyond that, I think parental input, teacher input are very important, like everyone said. We do have the technology to find out, what people think of the superintendent. I'm not so, test scores are always a good thing, but unfortunately, the first year of superintendent is going to be here. The test scores are going to come out after that year is over, and we're not going to know from the test scores whether or not they had improved them or not. And I don't know whether it's a risk to keep the superintendent around to see if the test scores go up or not. But I think that an online surveys maybe sent home through the school to the parents, to the teachers, to make a decision whether or not the superintendent is liked, whether they're performing properly. And I'm going to say the other aspect that nobody's mentioned is the principals. The principals are the ones who are working in the building the most. They work closely with the superintendent. They know if the superintendent is providing their particular school with what they need. So with that, they can give us an accurate assessment of how the superintendent is doing their job.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Braun. I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay, we'll go to the next question. And by the way, it's an hour from questions for me, and then an hour from questions.
Now, your questions are the ones that because you pen them, would be used first.
Okay.
Once you've exhausted your questions, if we haven't exhausted the candidates in the audience, will go on to questions from the audience.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that clarification. And I'm guessing we start with Ms. Bennett. I just want to make sure when we ask the question. During your tenure as a school board member, you undoubtedly will support programs and policies that you believe are in the best interest of the children and the school system. To have those programs and policies adopted, however, you will have to gain the support of other board members. What would be your reaction if another board member whose vote you need agrees to support your favorite program, as long as you support a program he or she is promoting, but you believe is not in the best interests of children or the school system? Ms. Bennett?
Okay, well, this is what we're talking about. We've seen a lot of this just go along with me, and not really having open discussions on certain things. I mean, look, with any organization, you have to be able to work together collaboratively. It has to be a team. You have to be able to respect each other's opinions and mindsets. I think, if that's how it were to go, then I don't think that I could go along with something like that. It's, there's got to be a change. So.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Dolan?
If I suggested, I forget the word you used, Mr. Braun?
I said you will undoubtedly support programs and policies you believe are in the best interest of the children in the school system, but to get those programs adopted, you will need the votes of others. And what would be your reaction if another board member or other board members whose votes you need agrees to support your favorite program, as long as you support a program he or she is promoting, but you have doubts as to whether that's in the best interest? In other words, how are you going to make deals?
I don't make deals.
Okay.
Thank you.
So you would not?
I don't make deals.
Okay. But let me go back to the original wording of the question. What if you need that vote and you think this is something that is very good for the children?
I would put out to all members of the board my feelings
Okay.
and why I think it's in the best interest of the children. If everyone is going to vote no, well, I'm not going to vote for something I don't believe in. So don't say, well, I'll give you my vote if you give me your vote on this and I don't believe in your vote, in what your program is. I don't work that way.
Thank you. Ms. Drucker?
I feel that that question is back to peer pressure in high school. So in my opinion, it would be no deal, because I'm not going to sacrifice one thing to get another. I think that our students deserve the best. They are our children, our flesh and blood. So I will not stand by that. I will not see it. And I will try to convince that person to possibly vote for the policy or program that's in the best interest, leaving it in their conscience, you know, because I always have to leave it in that person, because somehow they're going to come back and react, and hopefully in a positive way. So I will leave it in their hand at that point, and also speak to the rest of the board to give them an insight of the interest and the prosperity of those programs for our children. And hopefully together we will make the right decision.
Thank you, Ms. Lamparello.
I'm gonna quote Patty, I don't make deals either. If I have something that I want done and somebody else wants me to do something for them, I'm sorry. There are 5 other board members to appeal to, and if it's really the right program, then it will happen. And if it's not, then I'll just wait around till the next time around when somebody else comes up and we have a new board member and they feel it's the right program, and then we get it off the ground. And if I really feel it's a program that needs to be done, I'll just keep going at it and going at it until I get it, or I'll find another way. I mean, it's that simple, but I don't make deals either.
Mr. Braun?
It's a tough question. I think certainly that within any framework of a board or a committee, there's discussion. It's during the discussion time that we try to sway one another on that committee or on the board. I would put forth my opinion. I would try to support my opinion with facts and figures regarding the program or the issue that's being discussed or going to be voted on. I do think it's important to be able to entertain the thoughts of others. I would listen to what the other members have to say. I would try to understand their positions and try to provide them with my opinion. There's going to be give and take in any committee or board if we're trying to achieve outcomes. I mean, we could look at what's happening on a national level at the Congress and see how ineffective they are. They're not doing anything. So we can't just have a board that does nothing. There has to be some progress for our children. My position would be to try and elicit their support for the betterment of our children, but I would not vote on something that I felt was not in the best interest of our children. So it would be a difficult task to achieve, but it's the only way that we can go. Integrity, honesty is important, and we can't sell those things. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Braun. Next question, and I noted in the introduction there was a lot of concern about teachers not having appropriate materials and supplies they need. How would you go about, as a member of the board, ensuring that teachers and other instructional staff members do have the materials and supplies they need to do their job? Ms. Dolan. I'm sorry. Yeah, Ms. Dolan.
Well, without having looked at the budget line for line, I can't say where the money's being appropriated or where the money can be reappropriated to. But I would work to the best of my ability to make sure that we get everything that our kids and teachers need. That's a budget question, where I would take money from. And I really can't answer that without seeing the budget and studying it line for line. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Jaka?
I would analyze budgets from the past and see how the money has been spent. At that point, I would definitely see where you can cut corners. It's like it's as if we're, you know, doing paying the rent, grocery shopping in our homes. What do? We budget. As moms or dads, we budget. Make sure that our kids have what they need. in the same aspect, I would analyze that budget and see where we are overspending and definitely maneuver or somehow make sure that that money is allocated instead the following year for the most important supplies.
Thank you. Mr. Lamparello?
Well, our budget, as part of our budget, it's part of the budget is allocated for supplies, textbooks, and things that are needed to provide as educational tools. So I think that the first thing that I would do is look at the past couple of years and see what we've spent on those educational tools, see how much we need to spend on them in the future, and make sure that the budget line for it is appropriated, responsibly, so that we have all of the things that we need. If it's not, then we would need to do a budget adjustment and move money from somewhere to somewhere, or see what we needed to do to make sure that the line item for the budget that's budgeted for the necessities that we need to teach our children is appropriate.
Okay. Mr. Braun?
Mr. Braun, may I hear the question again? I apologize.
How would you go about ensuring that teachers and other instructional staff members have the materials and supplies they need to do their jobs?
I don't think anybody could do any worse than what this present board has done with the budget. Budgets are not so complicated. They have line items. We're supposed to appropriate so much money for that particular line item. What this board has done presently is just hired unqualified individuals to handle the budget. The board approved any and every hire with balloon salaries that they could. I would stop that. They have their $2 million baby. Let's not forget that. They all voted for that. I would have not approved that proposal, and they did that against the public's wishes. Everyone was there telling them, don't do this. That night, not only did they continue to do it, they voted on an additional $1.9 million to add to that budget line. Money that we didn't have, but they all voted for it, if I remember correctly. And if they didn't vote for it, no one on that board questioned it or tried to stop it. So all we really need is simple budget management. There was a budget. They should have stuck to it. It was approved by the Essex County superintendent. So a budget is easy to run. This board has failed us. There's so much corruption. We are suffering as a result of it, and we need to change it. November 4th. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Janice?
Anyone who runs a business or knows, there has to be a line item in the budget for supplies and textbooks. It obviously has not been spent on the children. I think we all know that with this current board. So looking forward into the new years and with new budgets, I think it's time to get back to whatever is there and start aligning it with the curriculum, whatever the new curriculum is going to be. And I sure hope I'm around to look at that curriculum as well. And as you're aligning the curriculum, you're aligning it up with the textbooks and all of these things that our children need in school. So yes, I believe that there was money in the budget for these things, but it was not spent on the children. It was spent somewhere else.
Okay, so my next question, and this will be started with Ms. Jocko, is as you know, you've got a fiscal monitor or state monitor, and that person is currently implementing new fiscal controls to take the district out of deficit. What specific steps would you take in the future as a board member, and you may be part of a minority, to ensure that no deficit occurs again? We heard criticism by Mr. Braun, and it sounds pretty justified to me, about what that board did, but two of you are going to be on that board. And what are you going to do when issues like this come up? And what are you going to do to ensure that no deficit is occurring again. What's the deficit now? About $4.8 million, I think. That. So that would be, Mr. Acco starts that question, right? Yeah.
Definitely looking closely to the dealings of the fiscal monitor as they are working through the financials. I think that transparency is important. So if you don't know something of what they are doing, you also ask as an individual. You just don't let it go and just keep going and as the time progresses. So I would definitely, if elected, work closely. If I don't know something, I will ask, get informed, and definitely not just leave it there. Research and see other school districts to see what they now, after going through it, did and what they suggest is a better way. Because just because something's in front of you doesn't mean it is what it is, okay? We can save, click the document saved. That doesn't mean that's what's going on in the back. That's where I refer to the transparency part of it. So I would definitely work close, ask questions, research, and get informed to make sure that even the fiscal monitor is doing what they're supposed to do, because in the past, we knew what a superintendent was supposed to do, but they still did not do it.
Thank you, Ms. Lamparello. Sure. The state monitor is currently implementing new fiscal controls to take the district out of deficit. What steps would you take in the future as a board member to ensure no deficit occurs again, and keeping in mind that only 2 of you are going to be on this board next go round, so you may be in the minority.
Our current Board of Education is a committee-based Board of Education, meaning that each committee is responsible for what it's supposed to be responsible for. So that being said, the first thing that I would do is ask, as a new board member, would be asked to be put on the Budget Committee. They're the ones who are going to be controlling how much the new budget's going to be, where the money's going to be allocated, and what's going to be spent. They're the ones in charge of making sure that there is no overspending. And the best way to do that is to be on that committee. If I'm not appointed to that committee, then the best way to check overspending is to look at the budget line by line, look at past budgets, and make sure that they are not overspending or underspending in areas that need to be spent, and voting on it appropriately, whether it is a good budget and should be moved forward, or it's not a good budget and it should be voted no.
Okay, Mr. Villon?
Mr. Regan was brought in as a state monitor to oversee the fiscal disaster that this present board has created. The Finance Committee, who is chaired by one of our board members, completely failed us in that regard. What steps would I take? Well, what they did was eliminate the business manager. They pushed him out so that they can bring in someone, a puppet that they can control. By doing that, they opened our safe, our tax dollars. The board basically opened the safe up and said, hey buddies, you guys out there, you political boss, you do what you want. So they came in and they did exactly that. That's how we ended up in a $4 or $5 million deficit. The first step that I would take is make sure that we hire a qualified business manager. And that means not someone with a degree, but someone who actually has done it before, someone with integrity, someone that we can trust with our money. So that would be the first step. I would want to sit on that budget or the finance committee. I would push for it. I would want to see what's going on. And even if I wasn't appointed to sit on that committee, I'd want to go and see what's going on. I would also ask for their minutes. I would want to see what they're spending the money on, and I would share it with the public. You know how they have those reports where everybody goes, oh, I went to the fun stuff, I did fun stuff, and our children are wonderful? That's not what I would be discussing during that report, but the negativity that's happening with our money. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Braun. Ms. Bennett?
In addition to what Chris Lamparello said, a good business administrator is going to align that budget with the superintendent. They're going to work collaboratively to do that. In my agency, it's the same thing. We're at a bare bones budget right now. We've managed to keep it almost the same for the last couple of years. I think that moving forward, it's going to be very challenging and difficult. There's no way to even answer this question with assurance, only that what else could we do to fill the gaps in our budget? And so I would have to say maybe looking for grants, definitely larger grants to somehow cover the costs of things that our children would probably not have with the current budget as it is now.
Thank you, Ms. Nolan.
First of all, I too would like to sit on the budget committee. I'd like to see every nickel and dime that comes out, where it's going, where it's coming from. The business administrator is the one that does the budget. I want to see line for line where the money's going, where they're allocating it to. With the last business manager, I don't know where he got all of this money that he was able to spend, that we are now asking for loans from the state to pay back. If he was truly a business manager, he never would have allowed any of that money to be spent. So we need a business manager that has more than an acting resume. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, this starts with Ms. Lamparello. How do you view the rights of teachers and other instructional staff members to speak out on general issues affecting, and specific issues as well, affecting the Belleville school system?
Freedom of speech is a right that many people died for us to have, and there's absolutely no reason that teachers shouldn't have it. If they have a problem and they can't get any satisfaction from their principal, their administrators, and they feel like they need to get up and speak at a board meeting, then they should have every right to do that. The public should know everything that's going on. There shouldn't be anything hiding. Nothing should be, in the closet. If you have a problem or if they have an issue that they feel is necessary that needs to be brought out, then they should do so. They've been at meetings lately and they've been doing a very good job of speaking for themselves, and they should continue to do so.
Thank you. Mr. Braun?
You have the freedom to get up there and risk your job. That's the freedom that you've had in this community and in front of that board as teachers. That's not freedom at all. Teachers have been silenced by this board. They've been intimidated. They've been harassed, falsely accused, transferred, RIF letters to every teacher in the district. 6 years ago, we were fighting for our principals at school number 5. We asked the board, please, don't transfer the new principal. We'd like to have continuity for our children. We all went there with our freedom of speech. We spoke to the board. We asked them, please keep the principal. They laughed at us, they ignored us, and they voted to transfer. The next year, guess what they did? They transferred the principal again. We went up, we spoke, we protested, we asked them not to, they did nothing. The third year, the same thing, over and over. The intimidation and the harassment and the transfers has got to stop. The only way that it's going to stop is by replacing those people on that board. I'm sorry, but they have not done the job. They have failed us in every way possible. We cannot allow this board and their candidates to get elected, because the same thing is going to happen again. It's never been personal. It's about executing business and business strategies for the benefit of our children. That is not happening. The teachers' union president went up there to speak on behalf of our children, and he was attacked. We cannot allow this to happen. Vote for the right candidates. Make a stand. Let's make a difference.
Okay, time.
Thank you.
Ms. Bennett?
I think that everyone does have the freedom of speech. I think that the teachers standing together in unity definitely showed the community and the sense of actually getting up and not being afraid to get up. No one should be bullied or intimidated. We know exactly what was happening in our schools. It affected our students very so. So I think if the teachers want to continue to keep getting up and standing up for the rights, then that should be fine.
Thank you, Ms. Dillon.
I believe every teacher, administrator, staff member has the right to get up and voice their opinion at a Board of Ed meeting. And I know you have been laughed at, which you don't deserve. But I believe everyone has the right to get up. If the board does not recognize that there is a problem, you should be able to go to a board member and say, hey, listen, I've gone to my principal, I've gone to the superintendent, I've gone to Board of Ed meetings. Nobody is listening. Talk to a board member, see if they can help you out. I know when I'm elected to sit up on that board, you could always come to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dillon. Mr. Drucker.
I think that this is America, and many of us know that many died for us to have that freedom. So I feel that nothing is wrong with voicing a concern or opinion, especially if it's something that's affecting you as an individual. And as long as it's handled tastefully with respect, I definitely agree with it. And I think that if we don't express our concerns, it can affect our morale, and it has been affecting the teachers' morale while working, and that in turn is a domino effect, and it affects our children. Because we all know at work, if we have a bad day, everyone kind of has a bad day. So it's not good. So definitely, I definitely feel that the teachers should voice their opinions or concerns.
Okay, thank you. This will be Mr. Braun starting the answer. What steps will you take to reverse the poor CUSAC ratings received by the Belleville school system? I believe they were released last week, or earlier this week. Yeah. Mr. Braun?
Thank you. To reverse the CUSAC scores is going to take basically resources. The resources have been eliminated because money has been shifted in the wrong direction. Without the resources necessary, the teachers cannot teach our children. They're trying. On the first day of school, which take any kid, and I remember myself as well, I may not have been the best student or love school the way my daughter does or the way my wife did, but the first day of school was always fun. We all looked forward to it. We got dressed up, we looked forward to seeing our old friends. It was an exciting time. This year, somehow, this board failed our children even with that. On the first day of school, all they got to do was sit there and look at each other and waste time because they weren't ready. How could you not be ready for our children on the first day of school? Changing the CUSAC scores are going to require rebuilding of our school system. And the resources are going to be lacking because $5 million has to be given back to the state. Years ago, I was warning, alerting, voicing my concerns. I only wish that I had been heard at that time, because to go back now and try to start this over again is a major task. It's going to be difficult. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett.
The CUSAC report ties in with the accountability. So the problem is there's the curriculum. The teachers don't have the curriculum to teach, and until we get a curriculum for them and begin teaching the students are not going to learn. It's a vicious cycle. So I think in order to raise these test scores, hopefully the curriculum director is collaborating with the principals and the teachers, and they now have curriculum, hopefully. I have not seen that. I have a kid in school, but they are trying. And, you know, with the consistent integration of the newer curriculums, that will hopefully tie in with the CUSAC. But I think we still have a lot of problems. So until we get newly elected officials and get in there and look at what's going on and look at the budget, I'm not necessarily sure that we're going to see a rise in our test scores again this year, maybe minimally.
Thank you, Ms. Nolan.
The CUSAC test scores were bad. However, School 10 was not. Why can't we develop some kind of program where the teachers and the principal from School 10 can meet with the other principals and teachers and say, this is what we're doing. Maybe they're doing something different than the other schools are. That may help our scores go up. I think School 10 should have been congratulated that their scores were up there, and not because they're a smaller school, because technically they're not. School number 9 is smaller. So I think maybe they should collaborate with School 10 and see what they're doing different than what they are. They need to help each other. They also need the supplies. They need the books. And unless we get them those, they're not going to be helped. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will be getting to the question of test scores. Actually, it's the last question. But CUSAC has to do also with, as you know, governance and curriculum and that sort of thing. So anyway, Ms. Draco, you answered the same question.
Definitely the resources for our children are definitely one. We've narrowed down the problem. We need the resources. So, for example, this year we went through no schedule for about a week. Last year my son went through the wrong schedule for 2 months. So, you go ahead and earn a grade and then they tell you no. So it's like an eraser. That's it. You got to retake it, you know, next marking period. So we have to avoid all these problems. I never had that problem growing up. The teachers and the principal hand wrote everything and worked it out. I don't understand that now we have so much technology, how we're going back in time instead of moving forward. So definitely the resources is very important, and as a superintendent, monitoring the curriculum. Because if you can't get it done, we have to help each other and get it done. So definitely focusing on the curriculum, making sure it's getting done, making sure it's in line. And of course, having the resources for our children to be able to learn.
Thank you, Ms. Lamparella.
As a result of our low CUSAC scores, which are abominable, we are supposed to submit a remediation plan for it, which I'm under the impression that we have done. One thing we haven't seen, though, is the remediation plan. what are they going to do to fix it? So I think as a new board member, the first thing that needs to be done is we need to look at the remediation plan. We need to make sure that all the resources that are needed, the books, the computers, the technology, paper, whatever we need to make sure that the students have what they need so that that score can go up. And we need to look at the remediation plan and make sure that the remediation plan is a good one. I mean, you know, whoever made it up needs to make sure that that plan is a plan that will make us be successful in raising the scores. And if it's not successful, then it needs to be tweaked in a way to make sure that our students are receiving the best they can and that they can, you know, raise their scores as a result of it.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Bennett will have this question to open with. Charges have been made openly in public board meetings that members of the school board have solicited political contributions from staff members. What do you think of such a practice? And if you're opposed to it, what would you do as an individual board member if you learned about it? And what would you do to end that practice?
Could you repeat the question?
Charges have been made, watching the tape for this, that members of the school board have solicited political contributions, or their supporters have solicited political contributions from staff members. As a matter of fact, I think the charge was that they found out the addresses and members of the staff and they sought political contributions from them. What do you think of such a practice? And if you are opposed to it, what will you do as an individual board member if you learn it happens, and what would you do to end the practice?
Well, first of all, there should be no political campaigning on school property. If I'm campaigning, I cannot do it, so therefore the teachers cannot do it.
I don't think that wasn't part of the charge, though. It wasn't necessarily done on school property.
Okay, then I don't know. If they want to campaign because they have a belief and they want to organize themselves, which they have, then as any other individual would be able to do so, then that's their prerogative. Yeah.
Okay, Ms. Dolan?
First of all, no lists should be given out of any student's name and address or any teacher's name and address soliciting money for campaign funds. I don't believe the teachers should be asked for money to donate to someone running for any office in Belleville, because it looks like, and it has happened, if you don't pay up, you lose your job. And no employee should be subject to that.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Drucker?
I think what has been done is incorrect, and you asked what I would do to stop it, correct?
Yes.
If I'm aware of it, I will notify the proper authorities or the proper people that would do something about it. First is knowledge. If I'm aware of it, I'm going to voice it. That's the second step. And then everything else follows through. So I'm definitely against it, and personally, that's why I do not accept a single dollar from anyone for any campaign.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Lamparello?
I don't really think that's a very good practice either. I mean, you come to work and, you know, you're there to do your job. You're not there to support such and such's kid. You're not there to support such and such because they're running for this and that. You know, your money is hard earned, and if you don't want to give it up, you shouldn't have to give it up without any kind of retribution. I agree with Erica. You know, you go to the next step. If you're a board member and you're soliciting money, you know, the first thing I would look to see if it was an ethics violation, because, I mean, there's got to be some reason, that there has to be some law that says you're not allowed to do that, and if there isn't, then one should be put into place. And I would also notify the authorities or whoever I needed to go to let them know and stop it.
Mr. Villan?
This question brings forth a very serious problem that exists in our community. This is real. I've heard it. People have come to my house. They've voiced their concerns. It needs to stop. What steps? An investigation. If I were a board member, I would push for a resolution. Bring them in, investigate. Let them ask the questions to these individuals who have come forth. Protect them from retaliation. That's the major problem. People are afraid to speak up. They're afraid to come forth. I filed ethics charges against several board members regarding similar issues several years ago. There was a Donaldson hearing where Mr. Naziola, a former principal, poured his heart out and tried to expose this. The board members did nothing. Mr. Naziola was transferred to a position that was very belittling. He was brave enough to fight and to try to expose these things, but the board members did absolutely nothing to help him or to bring this forward. I believe that an investigation is necessary, and let it be transparent. If there's nothing done, if nobody did anything wrong, then let it prove it for them. Let their records be clean. Let there be no doubt that they did nothing wrong. However, I believe the outcome would be quite different than exoneration to many. Thank you.
Okay. Next question, Ms. Dolan. That's the first shot at this. How would you react if tenure charges are brought against a staff member who also happens to be a leader of some sort in a bargaining unit? In other words, will you seek special assurances that the charges are not retaliatory? At the same time, would you make sure, I don't want to add words to this. In other words, will you seek special reassurances that the charges are not retaliatory?
Can you repeat that, please?
How will you react if tenure charges are brought against a staff member who also happens to hold a leadership position in a bargaining unit? In other words, will you seek special reassurances that charges are not retaliatory?
Yes, I would.
Okay. Simple. Mr. Rocco?
Can you repeat the question, please?
How will you react if tenure charges are brought against a staff member who also happens to be a leader of a bargaining unit? In other words, will you seek special reassurances that the charges are not retaliatory?
Towards myself, you mean?
No, tenure charges are brought against a staff member
okay.
who also happens to be a leader of a bargaining unit. Now, you're on the board. You have to vote on this. You may vote yes or yay or nay, but what special assurances would you seek that the charges are not retaliatory?
I know.
Well, first,
There is prior to the meeting, there's also a private meeting. So I would also listen to what's going on before making the decision. But I would definitely not say vote no, because I wouldn't want the retaliation to be there. Correct? That's what you were asking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Lamparello?
I'm going to have to ask you to repeat the question.
Okay, I'm sorry, it's a bad question, but I thought it was actually simple, and no one proved it to me by saying yes. How will you react if tenure charges are brought against a staff member who also happens to be a leader of a bargaining unit? In other words, will you seek special reassurances that the charges are not retaliatory?
Yes.
Mr. Bellon?
I believe tenure charges are very serious, and for a teacher or a principal to be brought up on such charges, yes, of course, more information is necessary before I would vote on tenure charges towards anyone. I think as board members, we have an obligation to do what's right, not to jump to conclusions. not to act hastily, and certainly not to cast votes based on politics and retaliation. I think that an individual sitting on that board should have integrity, and that's lacking with this board. I've seen it for years. The votes that they take or the votes that they make have us all shaking our heads. I've seen many of the members here in this audience baffled at times when we're sitting at the board and these board members cast votes. A tenure charge is a serious thing. Any charge against anyone is a serious matter, and no charge should be taken lightly. You should be well informed. You should investigate. You should ask questions. You should not take charges lightly. So yes.
Ms. Bennett?
There would probably be enough information presented, so I would probably vote yes, the same.
Okay. So the last question I have. Last week also, I believe, or this week, whatever the day was, the board released test scores. Without I mean, you can comment on those test scores you like, but looking to the future, what will you do to ensure the performance of Belleville students on statewide tests improve, especially in the light of new testing that will be coming down in the Common Core Standards, the PARC requirements? This is Ms. Drucker.
To improve test scores, I definitely think we should offer some sort of after-school tutoring. I know it's hard to tutor for something of sort of a test score, but at least we have an idea. For example, the LSATs are available, the GMATs, correct? So I think we could form some sort of a little pamphlet or some sort. We can definitely look into it with the Essex County superintendent and see what can be done and definitely help improve the test scores. That way, definitely to give our children the resources that they might need, and as a parent also let them know that they need to sleep early. I remember announcements going out before, make sure your child sleeps early, this week there's testing. And every little bit helps, and we know that we as people do not function well if we don't have enough sleep. So we definitely, those little minor things can definitely enhance our children's test scores.
Okay, Ms. Lamparello?
I'm going to go back to something that Patty had said earlier. My kids went to number 10 school, and we were always one of the highest, if not the highest performing school in the district for as long as I can remember. And I think that, maybe we could use what they're doing as a model for, what we can do going forward. Some of those teachers there could, speak to the other teachers and, work out some kind of plan and, work it through the district to help and see what they do to get their, their test, how their test scores be that high. It has nothing to do with the size of the school. It's got to do with the drive of the teachers and the drive of the students. And, maybe we can use that as a model and we can work going forward. I mean, that's the best way to, improve our test scores is to speak to our teachers and see what they think we need to do in order to get them there where they need to be.
Thank you, Mr. Braun.
There is so much that we can do to help our teachers, help our students, our children do better, none of which have been done in the past. Again, children can't learn if they don't have a chair to sit on. Teachers can't teach if they don't have books. The technology that we have has been destroyed or left to become outdated. What we need to do is improve the morale of the teachers. A teacher who has been told today that you're going to teach a kindergarten class starting Wednesday, but your experience as a teacher are all with high school students. Imagine this teacher's fear entering a kindergarten classroom to teach after being at the high school for 6 or 7 years. I mean, that's like telling an orthopedic surgeon you got to go in and do heart surgery, and that patient better not die. It's ridiculous what we're expecting these teachers to do with what they've done to this district. Expecting the teachers to pull off miracles. In order to improve the scores, we've got to get back to the basics. We have to improve morale. We have to provide the technology. We have to provide books, paper, pens, pencils. Keep the teachers where they are, where they're strongest. Stop bouncing them around all over the place. Overcrowding the schools. They took $4 million or $5 million and wasted it. Imagine what we could have done with that money, where our children would be today. And we have to start all over again. Thank you.
Ms. Bennett?
The teachers are working to improve the test scores. They do have SGOs that they have to do quarterly, so they are making sure that the students are keeping up with what they're learning in the classroom. As a parent, I have to tell you, when I get those report cards home, it's very good to see the bulleted points of what your child does and doesn't know yet. There are programs in school, the remedial programs and other programs to help the students, and this is in the elementary level. I know in the middle school they've done some different things with their program, in the high school as well. So the teachers are working with what they have, but certainly they could use more resources to be able to do a better job to continue to raise the test scores.
Ms. Dolan?
I also feel the teachers are working to the best of their ability. They need more supplies, updated technology. All this money that was spent on technology has gone down the drain. It's a $2 million debt that we have to pay back. And there's no money left. There's no money left. So we got to get the teachers what they need, and we need the teachers to collaborate with each other. Like Chris brought up School 10 again. Those teachers are doing something right. Well, let's get together and let's teach the other teachers, hey, maybe it's easier if you do it this way. Well, I'm doing it this way and I've accomplished this. It's not like a bullying process, like I'm better than you are. It's to collaborate with one another to move the kids forward. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that concludes my questions. Please, yeah.
There were a few cards that specifically addressed a question to a specific candidate, or there were cards that indicated that 2 candidates would answer and 1 should not. Therefore, the objective here is not to personally put anyone on the spot regarding an issue or to be excluded from answering the question. Therefore, there are a few cards which I did not present to Mr. Braun for his consideration at all. The rest of the cards, what I just tried to do was simply group them into categories so Mr. Braun could see it more clearly, and it's Mr. Braun's choice which of these cards he chooses to use and how many at this point that came from the audience.
Well, we're going to go to 9, right?
We can go till 9, yes, sir.
All right, because there's a little less. Okay, these are again questions I did not write, so, well, I'll just read them. I tried to get some topics that we haven't touched on earlier. And Ms. Lamparello would be the first to respond to this. The questioner asks, we've had a revolving door for special ed directors. Also, special ed has been over budget and forms a large chunk of our current deficit. How would you suggest we find a more permanent director and get that budget under control without having services suffer?
Welcome to my wheelhouse. One of the biggest problems that we had here in this district in special education is that we've been having a revolving door of directors. We need to find a director who seriously knows what they're doing. we talk about overspending and the large over budgetness of our special ed department recently, and I can tell you right where that is attributed to. The trend right now is to say, okay, we're sending a child out of district, it's costing you such and such amount of money, and if we bring that child back, we're going to save all these tons of money. Well, guess what? You're not. Because when you bring the child back into district, you have to provide a teacher, you have to provide an aide, all of their therapies, all of their outsourcing, all of their specials, their music and everything to them, and that comes at a cost. And when you add up the cost of all of those things, you end up, they're over budget. So it's cheaper to send the child out of district to a program that is more appropriate for them. The other problem is that when you bring a child back into district, you overspend because it may not be appropriate for them, and now you've got a child who is going backwards because they lost time, and after a year of spending the time and you're thinking you're saving your money, you are back to sending the child out of district, and they've lost a year of learning, you've spent too much money, and nobody's happy in the end. If you're going to try and save money by bringing children back into the district, you need to do it in such a way where you're opening a new program, or you're providing services to multiple students that will be cost effective, but it's not a cost effective way of teaching if your child is going to lose something. I've had this conversation many times because my son's been out of district send for his whole life. You bring him back in and he's 16 years old. There's an age limit. He can't be in a classroom with a 5-year-old or a 4-year-old or a 10-year-old. So you need 2 classrooms. More overspending.
Thank you. Mr. Braun?
Special education, of course, is a very sensitive issue for all of us. My sister, 3 years younger than me, attended special education classes throughout her school years. She graduated and lives a modest life, and it was important for her to have that option, and it is costly. If you look at the budget line, and this is a concern that I have, when you look at the budget line, they beef up the special education line item. It's a line, they have a budget, and the budget is usually very big. The town has a fixed budget. Once the budget is out, they can't change it. The school district has a flexible budget. One thing that happens on that budget with special ed is they ramp it up, but then throughout the year, they take money out of it and shift it into other areas, usually administrative. You can see that if you request the flexible budgets as they change them and submit them, which they won't give them to you. I've had to Oprah them repeatedly. I had to sue the district to retain certain Oprah documents because they would not provide them. When you're also thinking about special education, it's not just for those individuals like my sister, who was slowed in her learning capacity. We also have to consider on the special education those children that excel beyond the normal level of students in their age groups. So special education is a very important program, but we can't lose sight of what else we can do with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bennett?
I know special education is very broad in the sense that there are many levels of the special education. There's some inclusion, there's some sending out of district. The district is trying their best to tackle these issues however they can. Their students are assigned to, well, the parents when they come in and are looking for this help. There are caseworkers that are assigned. The problem is yes, you don't know how much year to year you're going to have to spend on special education, and those costs can go up and increase very much. And from what I understand, there is a long list. There are a lot of cases, and there's a short staff to try to get around to facilitate some of these issues that they're having. Yes.
Ms. Goen?
Would you please repeat the question?
We've had a revolving door for special ed directors. Also, special ed has been over budget and forms a large chunk of our current deficit. How would you suggest we find a more permanent director and get that budget under control without having services suffer?
Well, first of all, I remember specifically the director of special ed saying, my budget has not been raised in 2 years. I don't need any more money. So why it was inflated, I have no clue. Secondly, we need to make sure that we get a director of special ed who's fully qualified. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Draco?
I'm gonna agree with Chris on this. Definitely cost definitely affects. So definitely the decisions we make are costing us. We need to make sure that the decisions that are being made are the correct ones. I know for a fact that in the child study teams, they meet with the parents, but normally they don't meet with the parents on a monthly basis. They rarely call you, perhaps every 3 months. And, you know, they leave it on the parents. Some of the parents don't know what's going on. They just know their child has been signed up for special ed. I know because my son was signed up for special ed. So I always call them or contact them to get a feel of what's going on, because I myself want him out of there. Because if you don't belong in a program, I want him out. It's like a thin line that you didn't cross it, so then therefore he can't. And I had to sign that paperwork and put him in that program. So, and I can take him out, but I want to take him out when he's ready. So definitely having more sort of a mandatory meeting on when we hire that director, make sure that I know they have an overload, but make sure that they're doing their job when we hire them. Make sure we hire an adequate person who can handle that position. Because every year I've had a different director and I've had to speak to for 3 years now. So it's 1 minute you call that number, it says it's disconnected because that person is no longer the director and it's someone else. And then the substitute teacher he had was a substitute teacher for the whole year for math. And what happened with my progress report? Nothing, it was blank. So how can your child progress or get out of that program if we're not giving them their resource, a teacher? Thank you.
Thank you. Next question will be answered first by Mr. Braun. In your opinion, as candidate, what is the responsibility of the district in educating the children of undocumented immigrants?
I believe that there are laws in place that govern federal laws that the state has to adhere to. I don't think that the board is in a position to dictate changes to those federal laws. Undocumented immigrants?
That's the way the question is written.
Yes. Undocumented immigrants. According to the federal law, all children have to be educated. It's not the child's fault that they're here for whatever reason. It's not up to the board to stop educating them. We have an obligation to educate them by law, and so we must. We have to look at children as the future. All children are the future of this community, the future of this county, the future of this state, and the future of this country. A better educated society is freer from such things as fascism, racism. We have to educate our children. And undocumented, documented, poor, white, black, they all have to be educated. And for one, I'm glad that the law exists, and it should continue to exist. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Bennett?
Could you repeat the question?
In your opinion, what is the responsibility of the district in educating the children of undocumented immigrants?
It is a law, so I guess we have to teach the children.
Okay, all right. Ms. Dolan?
Like Mr. Valon said, it is the law, whether they're documented or undocumented. My only question would be, are they citizens of this town? If they're citizens of this town, then we have to educate them. If they're not, then we don't. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Drago?
That's what I was gonna mention, so I agree with you, Ms. Dolan. Definitely, we can't break the law. We have to teach the children. So basically, what I would like to focus on is the verification of their Belleville residency. I in fact know a person who called the high school to notify them that someone is using their address because they were receiving mail for that person, and they didn't know who it was. And the person on the phone, the secretary, said, "Are you sure, you know, that you're making this accusation?" She's like, "Yes, I own this house." But nothing was done. So basically, that's where I would definitely cut the corners, is verifying that student lives in this town. Because if they don't, that's extra money we're spending.
Ms. Lamparello?
I agree with the ladies. I mean, if they live here, that every child should be educated. It's our job as society to do that, so yes.
Okay, now we're going to have the wrap-up. How long is it?
You have 2 minutes.
2 minutes for a final summary of your positions. Well, it just turns out that we'll go alphabetically this time, starting with